A manhunt continues this morning for the suspect in a brutal attack on an Asian man in East Harlem.
65-year-old woman was walking to church when a man punched and kicked her while shouting anti-Asian slurs.
An Asian father who was pushing his one-year-old child in a stroller was suddenly beaten to the ground.
A vicious attack caught on video leaves an Asian man hospitalized.
Another attack against an Asian American person is
another vicious attack against a member of the Asian community.
Asian American viciously beaten.
Another senseless crime against the Asian American community.
Yet another Asian resident was attacked on San Francisco's streets yesterday.
This morning, police are investigating a string of deadly shootings at 3 massage parlors in and around Atlanta.
They shot up a spot there. They've shot up 2 spas here. So we need to make sure if we have any Asian spas, we need to be checking on them.
The first happened late Tuesday afternoon at Young's Asian Massage. Police arrived to find multiple people shot.
Could you please introduce yourself and state what ethnicity you identify with?
Yes. Hi, my name is Jenny Zhu. I am a senior at North Allegheny Senior High School, and I identify as Chinese American.
My name is Samantha Podnar, and I am half white and half Filipino.
I'm Lindy Glenoga. I'm in 11th grade, and I'm Filipino.
My name is Sonika Chalk, and I'm an Indian.
Hi, I'm Mia Simmons, and I'm Chinese.
Hi, I'm Eleanor, and I identify as Korean Chinese American.
I'm Sushmita. I'm a junior, and I am Indian.
My name is Sally Cho, and I'm South Korean.
I'm Thomas. I'm Chinese, born here, so like kind of count.
You do count. What do you mean? American.
I'm American Chinese, not like traditional. All that.
Something that I would like to share about my ethnicity is that when I was younger, a couple years ago, my family, friends, and my family and I, we went to a culture camp, which is down in like Western PA, I think. But it was a time to celebrate, you know, the individuality of all of us, because I think growing up in a mostly Caucasian society for the most of my life and being adopted into a white family, it was hard for me to really accept who I was at the time. And so being able to have a separate place and time where I could be with a bunch of people that were like me and in the same adoption group, it was really special.
I really love how everyone in the Asian community shares a bond with each other, and that we can really communicate with each other on another level compared to anyone else. I really love it, whether it's bonding with our skin tones or our unique names. It's really fun to be part of a community that is so accepting.
As a second-generation Filipino American, it has always seemed like a jigsaw puzzle being able to incorporate both my Filipino heritage and American societal values. Sometimes, whenever I focus on one, I feel like I'm masking the other, and I need to be able to incorporate both to be able to be like my true self.
So in America, our Asian culture tends to be really different from more prevalent Western cultures, which combined with our different physical features can contribute to the perpetual foreigner stereotype that is placed on us. This stereotype labels Asian Americans as foreign, even if you've been living in the US your whole life. And that can create a lot of identity confusion, identity separation, and unfortunately sometimes even identity repression. But living with all these cultures as a part of us, along with all of its various beauties, knowledge, and contrasts, is truly the most empowering thing when embraced and defines who we are.
Yeah, I think that being half Asian but being white passing has really affected how I see my identity. Just because I think that in the past I haven't had to think about being Asian as much, and I also haven't had to think about my culture as much or think about the struggles that my community faces as much. But now, as I'm learning more about my culture, and as I think we're seeing this renewed violence against Asian Americans, I'm trying to really reconnect with my identity and try to embrace my Filipino side more, because I think I've always kind of put a higher emphasis on my white side just because that's how I look.
I guess, yeah, no, it was pretty normal until earlier this year. Then, yeah, I guess when COVID started, I didn't experience any of this. I saw like mostly on news, it's like, oh, hey, wait a minute, this virus came from China, so that must mean let's go beat up Chinese people for, this virus that they didn't cause, because even though they never left the country before. So, that was really surreal experience.
A lot of people are hesitant of immigrants coming here because they believe that they're going to bring over their values or traditions that don't fit in with the moral standards of America, such as communism, or stinky food, or a virus. But my father is none of those things. He grew up silenced by the Chinese government. He would tell me stories about how he lived in a rural village picking cotton for communist efforts in China. They got paid so much for each large bag full of cotton that he sliced off part of his fingers picking off cotton in the countryside of China. And he would tell me how in the reign of Mao Zedong that there was a villager in his village that said that Mao Zedong's smile line looked like a rat's tail, and that villager got executed. And so he lived in constant fear of execution of himself and execution of the ones he loved.
So my birth name is Young-hae, which is Korean. And I used to have a lot of embarrassment, when it came to my name, because every first day of school I had, teachers would completely butcher it or be like, oh, I'm gonna ruin this name, sorry, and I just felt so embarrassed by that. And I would even whenever we had a substitute and they would take attendance from the roster and they'd have to say my real name, I would literally ask to go to the bathroom at the beginning of class so I wouldn't have to hear them trying to pronounce my name and get embarrassed. And then I came to a point where I would start emailing teachers ahead of school and being like, hey, just call me Sally. You don't have to say that out loud in front of the entire class on the first day of school. But then I realized this year, how silly that was. It's just a name. It's my name. It's just as normal of a name as Joe or Emily,
I think that I'm coming to realize that I shouldn't let my appearance dictate how much I embrace my own culture or what I think of myself. And I recognize the privileges that I have in being white passing, but I don't think that means that I should have to completely forget about my Asian side.
I think one thing I'd like to share is that I really enjoy being a part of two different cultures at the same time, the Asian Pacific Islander community and also the American community. It makes me more culturally aware and accepting of other cultures when I am exposed to two different cultures. And also, it's a lot of fun to celebrate different holidays. I can celebrate Christmas and I can celebrate Diwali on the same month.
Coming here was the first time I was ever surrounded by a big Asian community. For the first 10 years of my life, I was surrounded by predominantly white, Caucasian people that really did not know about other cultures or were not introduced into different type of races. So it was really hard there, but then coming here and seeing the difference in acceptance was really, really nice.
When we moved to Pittsburgh, I joined an organization called AAPI, which stands for Filipino American Association of Pittsburgh. And through that, I learned cultural dances. I learned about my Filipino heritage, and I even met some Filipino friends who were also second generation, and they were going through similar struggle as I was. And then I became more involved, and at present today, I'm the YFAP, which stands for Youth Filipino Association of Pittsburgh, vice president, and yeah, and I like organize a bunch of like Filipino service opportunities, and it's not even just for like Filipinos. We also promote like inclusion into our association for like other Asian heritages.
I feel like, well, number one, I mean, if anyone else feels like I do, don't feel ashamed of your own name. It's something that your parents gave to you and it's representative of your culture. I don't understand why anyone would ever have to feel ashamed about that. And if teachers butcher it, just be like, hey, it's pronounced like this and not this. And also, people, I mean, I chose to go by Sally just to make it easier for everyone, but if someone doesn't want to do that, they shouldn't have to, you know? Like, it's the most basic form of respect to just learn how to pronounce somebody's name, you know? So if you're gonna be a teacher in the future, if you are a teacher or anyone, if you just meet someone with an uncommon name, just ask them how to pronounce it. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm gonna butcher this, or try to pronounce it without asking, you know? Just respect people's names.
Despite his upbringing, despite all of the terrible things that he had to go through, he managed to, with the help of his siblings and familial support, he was able to go to college, go to medical school. By stroke of luck, somebody from the University of Michigan offered him a job, and so he was able to immigrate here with his wife, my mother, and my brother.
The more I learned about my Filipino culture, the more I realized that I needed to be able to piece together the puzzle that makes me, and I need to be able to incorporate both cultures. And even though it's a struggle at times and it's hard to like make sure I'm balancing both, it's all worthwhile, and being able to explore and express the real me.
It was pretty surreal until like then all the stuff happened with like the shooting, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is like a lot more intense than I initially thought. It's pretty weird now being Asian.
First time I experienced racism was in 3rd grade, and I had actually just moved from North Hills to NA, so I was at Bradford Woods at the time, and there was this kid there that knew racial slurs in 3rd grade, which was kind of alarming, which I think just proves that racism is always taught. You know, nobody's like really born with it, but I think the school handled it well. It was just the first time that I really realized that I was like different, because at that age I was like, okay, I kind of understood what adoption meant, and I kind of understood that I looked different, but it was like, and then I think after that it was a really big deal for me.
And so being Asian American to me is embracing the culture that my parents have and chose to leave behind for a better life here. Being Asian American allows me to bring in that culture into my values here and see the world from a different perspective than I think most people do.
I made it in a Jackbox game, so we were playing TKO, and we're like, hey, that's a funny shirt, paid $20 for it. This is not racist, this is just mildly ironic, but not this line.
We did it! There's something in my eye!
It's okay, let it all out. We welcome tears. Just kidding. Okay. All done. Easy peasy.
Cool.
And I needed to learn how to oh my god, I lost my thought. I need to learn how to
having trouble accepting that we're different and we're not just gonna like immediately assimilate into, you know what, I lost my train of thought.
Okay. From the top.
From the top, okay. Oh man, okay.
The thing is that if it starts raining while we're outside, I'm kind of screwed. All right. Hi guys.
Yeah, I think honestly my favorite aspect of Filipino culture is the language and also just like the Philippines itself. I've never been there, but I really want to go. It just seems like a really beautiful place. And in terms of the language, or the main language would be Tagalog. I'm really trying to learn it more. It's kind of difficult, but it's just a really pretty language. And I think that once I learn more, and hopefully if I become fluent, I'll be able to just connect to my culture more that way.
I really love our, this is gonna sound ironic, but like our desserts.
No, food!
Food is so good, yeah.
Okay, now you gotta share, like.
Okay, so what my favorite dessert is gulab jamun, and it's basically like these donuts that are dipped in like a syrup. So yeah.
My favorite food are these, I guess you would call them rice cakes. We call them idlis in our language, and you soak them in this kind of like dar, and it tastes really good together. So that's my favorite food.
Something to share about being Chinese American, Pittsburgh edition, is that you have to eat authentic Chinese food, and there's this place near Forbes Avenue next to Fuku Tea that is called Hunan Bar. It's Hunan space BAR, and it's this really jank brick building that looks really sketchy.
That's how you know it's authentic.
But the sketchy buildings are when you know it's authentic, great Asian food. So I recommend you give it a try. Their hots are very spicy, so be prepared for that. But otherwise, their fried fillet of fish is delicious.
Hey. Sonic out. Okay, thank you.